Hi, Jen. It's Julianne Dustlover. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Very thankful that you're here with me today regarding this project that I'm working on for college in regards to addiction to alcohol. So I have a few questions to ask you, um, and I appreciate your time. Um, the first question, if you're willing to answer that, would be why did you use and or choose to use alcohol?
Okay. So well, when I was younger, my dad used to drink heavily. He used to be an alcoholic, but I grew up in Germany, and drinking is kind of part of the culture there. Drinking was permitted at an age of 16, but really, if parents were present, then even younger than that. And so at the age of 11, that's when I first got into drinking with my friends, just because we thought it was cool. And so we would just drink a lot. We pretty much from the first time on, we like me and my friends would just get blackout drunk. Um, so yeah, and down the line that led me to other decisions that I made while I was disinhibited from the alcohol, and it led to other drug use, eventually to like the heavier kind. It was kind of like a slow process. So like I tried alcohol and then weed and then ecstasy and then methamphetamine and then eventually heroin. So um, and all of the drugs that I tried, alcohol was always the precursor to me trying it. So, but yeah, that's it.
And what are your triggers currently today?
My triggers are conflict and my mom. She's a great trigger. Um, and other than that, I most of my triggers have been like desensitized. Like I used to get triggered by like going to there's a fast food joint um where I live. It's called Jack in the Box, and I used to be triggered walking in there um because I used to use those restrooms to do drugs. But that's not the case anymore. I don't get triggered by that anymore. There are certain types of like cleaners, like bathroom cleaners, that still trigger me. Um, just because the smell, it just takes me back. But it doesn't like trigger me to a point where I know what it is. I recognize it, and it's more just like a distant like memory. So when I smell certain smells, I remember certain situations from the past. um so yeah, but conflict is probably the biggest one within the family.
Okay. What rehabs have you been in, if any?
um let's see. So I went to a methadone clinic in Arizona. It's not really rehab, but it's considered treatment. And then from there, I went to another methadone clinic in Southfield, Michigan, and I was tapered down over there, and I started using drugs again. And then I went to Ford, um, the Henry Ford rehab or detox at the hospital there, and I think it's in West Bloomfield, Michigan. I went through their detox program, and then I went through their outpatient, and then I went to another rehab in Michigan. It was a 3-week residential program. I don't remember the name of it. And then so that's 4, I think. And then I went to another 3 in California. So that's 7 total.
And how did those facilities help you?
Um, so, well, the first few, I wasn't really ready for any change yet. So I was just trying to find a way to continue using drugs. But I guess, I don't know if I did it, like the methadone was because I didn't want to feel like bad anymore. And then some of the other ones were because I had some court issues, legal issues. Um, but I mean, they all like taught me things, but it was more like learning the terminology of rehab and addiction and stuff. So the one that really changed me was Green Oaks Ranch in Vista, California. And I mean, it changed me because I found God, or God found me, and I was ready for change. I was willing to accept change. I was willing to just go to any length for a different life because I had already hit my rock bottom. And then also, it's there's like the social environment there is very conducive to recovery because it's basically a whole village. And they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village uh to recover an addict, I think. So it was finding purpose because the program there, the ladies in were doing housekeeping for camps. It was actually like a huge ranch that hosted camps, like church camps and stuff. So it was finding purpose, it was finding God, it was the social environment there. And then also the length of the program. It's a 9-month program. I ended up staying for 10 months. And so I was able uh, to like sustain some of the changes that I learned there versus in other programs, it's like 3 weeks or like maybe 2 months, and that's really not enough time. But yeah.
Outstanding. That sounds really great. So the next question I have is, how do you feel you can change the world with your story?
Um, well, I think I can change the world by telling my story. I'm kind of selective about which parts of my story I share because I work in a helping profession, and um, I am studying social work, and I studied substance abuse counseling as well. And so I'm very selective with my self disclosure because I have to make sure that it is for the client's best interest and not just for me to feel better or feel good about sharing my story. But I can use my story to make a change, and maybe in just smaller ways. I take it like on an individual approach, person by person. Um, Mostly I try listening to others and their stories because that tells me a lot about what they went through and why things happened the way they did. And then if there's an opportunity, I throw in bits and pieces of my story to let them know that there is a way out, that there is a different life, that they are able and capable. And so, yeah.
That's outstanding. I'm so proud of you. That's awesome. That makes me very happy. Thank you for that. And
Yeah.
what are your um end results with accomplishing this goal with helping others?
Um, well, I'm hoping to eventually become a licensed clinical social worker, and I want to work in homeless outreach. I'm working in a shelter right now, So I'm already kind of in the field, but I just want to be in that field in a different capacity. I want to go out into the streets and to like creeks or alleys or wherever there are people sleeping that where it's not really suitable for humans to stay, and I want to connect them with services. So that's my end goal. Just help the lost, go after the one that got away. Not, I mean, like there's that saying that Jesus left the 99 to get the one. I want to go and get that one. So yeah.
Thank you for that so much. And I have about two more questions and then we can end this because I know you're busy and I'm very thankful for your time. Do you see like a co-occurring and dual diagnosis with the individuals that you work with currently with regard
Yeah,
to mental opportunities and in addition to substance use disorders?
absolutely. Most definitely. I mean, all pretty much I would say 90% of the people that I encounter have more than just substance use going on. And even the ones like I work with mostly with the homeless population, and even if they didn't have um, a mental health challenge, just the fact that they were out there on the streets, a lot of times that causes a lot of like stress and trauma and things happen. And so even if they didn't, a lot of times they end up having some challenges later on. So yeah, it's definitely intertwined.
I would agree with you on that 100%. Um, Next question would be, excuse me, do you see your addiction as a positive? And if so, why?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a positive because it that's that's where my compassion comes from having been there and knowing what it's like, being able to feel the pain. Um, that's and that's where my desire to help also comes from. So I think it's a positive, and it's a addiction is like an ongoing cycle. People get out of it, and then new generations get into it. So um, yeah, I definitely think it's a positive because we need people that know that know what it's like so that we can help those that are still suffering.
I would agree with you 100%. Um, so a last question is a slightly long question. Do you feel that alcohol was the gateway drug to, because alcohol, as you know, is a drug? Um, do you feel that that was the gateway into the other drugs that you started to utilize later in your life?
Yes, definitely. It would definitely played a part in it. I mean, not everybody who drinks goes and becomes a drug addict, but it definitely played a huge part in my choices and my decision making because for me alcohol filled that hole, that void, and it made me feel like secure, like I was somebody, I was funny, and like all these insecurities that I was facing when I wasn't drinking and I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. Alcohol made all of that up, but then it also led the way to some very dangerous decisions that I made. And I think it's a miracle that I'm still here to this day, and it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely a gateway.
All right, I actually have a couple more questions and they're gonna be quick ones. Were you
Okay.
abused? Were you abused as a child?
Um, well, I mean, I wasn't really like physically abused, but there was like just a lot going on in my home because my parents were getting divorced. I mean, they lived together until I was 12, but they weren't like together. And my dad was drinking. He was an alcoholic, and I felt unseen and unheard as a kid. Um, and then also when I was younger, maybe, I don't know, or when I was 10 or so, um, I was touched by a gardener in Iran on a vacation. But other than that, I wouldn't say I was abused. I had some not so nice experiences, but not like, you know, like I was beat or something like that. So, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure I'm quite certain it's actually a very delicate topic for you. And lastly, what role did you play within the family dynamics with your
Um,
siblings?
so I'm the oldest and I'm the black sheep, or I was, not anymore. um, and we're kind of like a patchwork family. So, um, I, one of my sisters calls me the worst best example because I guess I did all the mess ups for them. So I was always like the problem child. But yeah, that's my role.
One last question. How successful in life are you currently? What have you become?
Um, I would say I'm a work in progress. Um, I mean, I'm in school full time. I'm married. I have a little baby. Um, I work uh almost full time at a shelter. Some weeks I work full time. Um, and right now we're in the process of trying to buy a house. So I think that's pretty successful. Through like 4 years ago, I was homeless, so um, I think we're doing okay. Both my husband and I were homeless 4 years ago. So looking back at that, and now we're looking at buying our own house, and we have cars, transportation, schoolwork, the baby. Like I think we're doing okay.
Well, I think you're doing more than okay. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing this with me and with my professor. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me.